Howdy, folks. I'm Rebecca Jolly, the Jolly Alchemist, here for another interesting neutrino forecast for Saturday, the 27th of September, 2025. Now, of course, these cycles repeat, so you could come back right around this time next year and watch the same transit and have an interesting comparison between how much that changes in a year and how much it doesn't. What won't change is the sun and the earth. So let's look at those. We've moved into a new right angle, so we're moving into a whole new grouping. Our last grouping was all about 46, and our new grouping is now going to be all about 18. Focus on the broken, or as the I Ching calls it, focus on what has been spoiled. Now, that is specifically what has been spoiled by the father, or the father and the mother, by past authorities. And line 1 of this gate is called 64 Keys calls it evolution. Ra called it conservatism. And it's about conservative principles for gradual evolution. So, yeah, the orders. Golly. Okay, I'm in this, so let's talk about gate 18 first. So, when we're talking about gate 18, we're talking about looking at what the previous generations have made, the patterns that they have laid down, everything that they've done through this logical circuit of trying to trying to figure out what's going to work for us in the future. And this is that sort of final step of perfection. This is the channel of insatiability where you're always wanting to look at it. You're always wanting to make it a little bit better. But at the same time, you really need to have a little bit of wisdom to decide what's worth correcting. Because if it's not worth correcting, just fucking leave it alone. Don't mess with it. If you fight too many battles, you're going to lose the war, that kind of a thing. But it's really in the 18th gate, and we'll talk about the whole cross in a minute here, because I definitely want to cover that as well. But the 18th gate, as a part of that cross, is about looking at gradual changes. So the 18th one is always that first line, always giving us a little bit of insight into the true nature of the foundation of the hexagram, what it really means to look at things and correct them. And it's about saying, okay, we've got a range here. On one side of it is, oh, it was good enough for Grandpappy, it should be good enough for you. And on the other side, it's like, well, maybe Grandpappy didn't know everything. There's something that could be a little bit better, but let's do it gradually so that we can try to avoid future upheavals. Huh? Because we've got these people like this right here who, if shit isn't done correctly, you're going to come back around and kick it up and poke it up again and give us an uncomfortable time until we look at it and start to actually change it again. So it's about that, okay, let's change, but let's not have a bloody revolution. Let's do it gradually. I definitely am of the opinion that we do not value our 18th gates enough. We tend to think of them as, oh, they're nagging, they're always bothering us, they're always asking for something new, something different, they always want it changed, but they always want it improved, is what it is. That insatiability is just trying to make it better. So that's the 18th gate, gradual modification. And really, you can't take it personally, because it's not personal, it's for the sake of everyone that this is being done. Of course, it can feel personal when you're living with one of them, I know, but it's really not. They're trying their best. All right, before I do 17, which is our Earth activation, I just want to swing back around a little bit and talk about the nature of this right angle cross that we're in now, and it's the cross of service. How nice. The third version, we're in the right angle, so there's 4 versions of this, all all throughout the year, and this is the third one. So each one of those gates are going to have a time being the focus of the service. In this case, it's the 18 that's the focus of the service. And as I said earlier, we have 52 and 58 underneath, those being concentration and joyous vitality And of course, the 17 is also there. So this time we're looking at the 18, the actual correction that needs to be done. We've been loving it, and we've been loving what we've had, but now we're like, it's a little bit of an Oedipal thing. Mom and Dad had something, and I loved it, but now I don't love it quite so much. Let's fix it. Yeah? So this cross of service is really looking into correcting the archetypes. So we have the archetypes of the father, the mother, the authority figures. Let's try to make it a little better. Let's be a better man, be a better woman. Let's see if we can get to be something better than we were a couple thousand years ago. And Ra has a sort of a gentle humor about this. He says, well, I think the men are slightly better than they were 2,000 years ago. And despite the men's 18th gate activations, the women have actually been able to improve. I thought that was kind of funny. So, yeah, that's what it is. Each generation is provoked by the one before, and that's what made me choose this tie. I was looking at this tie. Among all my others, I have so many thousands, and I thought, gosh, I love that, but I just can't see how it could ever be applicable, because what we have here is, this beautiful red color, and then at the bottom, we have this old, he looks like a crusader almost, yeah? Heading to the promised land, and check this out, no foot. What's that about? But this is the old man. This is the ancient man that we're trying to improve on. So this tie is a little bit of joke about the cross of service. We're here to be of service. And of course, it's definitely true that 18, is it 18 that's the following? Just a second, let me check it real quick. No, it's 17. It's 17. So now we get to go to 17. That's the earth, the other part of this cross. So 17 is openness to many opinions and points of views. The 17th gate, let's come up here a little bit. There we go. And we see it right here, coming out of the mind towards the throat. And this is in the channel of personal organization. This is the personnel manager. The 62nd gate is the gate of the Maya, the game of naming things. And then that 17th gate is going to have opinions. And of course, this first line of the 17th gate is going to tell us something essential about the fundamental nature of opinions. And that is, let's have a lot of them. So this openness is about openness to having lots of opinions. Of course, these people, he says, are people that are going to tell you about the opinions they like having. So if they're an art buff, they're going to tell you all about their art opinions. And opinions about politics, not so much. So it's something to look at. Each one of our opinion people are going to give us opinions about the things that they particularly are into. The whole purpose of this channel and the 17th gate in particular is to organize humanity. And this is kind of an interesting idea because it's very relevant to human design. It's about getting the information out there so that people can be, rather than educated on a basis of beliefs, being educated on a basis of foundational knowledge of who they are and where they belong and what they're actually supposed to be doing, so that people can be organized properly to advance human rights. And this is actually exactly what 64 Keys is about. They're about organizing corporations. God, that was the word I was looking for the other day. Organizing businesses, organizing corporations with people set in their right places so that they can work to their strengths and they can do the things that they're suited to doing and will find joy in doing, so that in these organizations that we still have, we can be the most powerful and the most useful as possible, rather than rising to the level of our incompetence, which eventually fucks our corporations and makes them top heavy and unwieldy and what's the word? It's where you have infighting and political things going on that are much more about the nature of maintaining the organism itself than the job that thing is supposed to be actually doing for humanity. Anyway, Ra gave an excellent example of this in Osho, of somebody who was really trying to organize society, but of course that was an experiment that went very off the rails eventually. You get egos involved, and it's exactly this dynamic I'm talking about. It becomes about maintaining the organization itself corrupt. That's what I was looking for. Corruption. Maintaining the organization itself, it becomes corrupt rather than using the power of that 18th gate to be in service to correction. So Osho really needed a third quarter cross of service in his organization to go, wait a second here, I love what you've done, but it's not actually working with the times. We need to move with it and gradually change, or we're going to have, oh, what did they have? Upheaval. There it was. So, yeah. Okay, that's good enough for now on that. Let's get into the rest of our activations, looking at our people energies, which is, of course, mostly what shifts over the course of a day. We begin the moon with 34.5 with a down arrow. 34.5, that's, of course, the gate of power, strength. I was talking about that yesterday. 0.5 is annihilation of resistance through power, and it does have a detriment or a down arrow on it today. That is power for power's sake, the need to release and display power even when completely unnecessary. I actually carry this energy of the 37 or 34.5. Not specifically with the detriment, but of course, anytime you have a line, that detriment is one end of the spectrum. It's definitely possible. And I have definitely, in times of my power-ups, been really pushed to display power for the sake of displaying power. And I gotta tell you, that always got me into trouble. That was not good. In fact, I'm in a little bit of trouble right now because of something I did in my last power-up that was very much just for the sake of displaying power. So, not always a good thing, but let's try to use it properly, yeah? The power in service to the good. This is something I've been learning the hard way, indeed. Well, when the moon is done with 34, it will move into 9. Interesting, today we're going to experience through the moon both the small and the great taming powers. The small taming power is right here, the 9th gate. That is it, isn't it? Yeah, I've got it right. The 9th gate, that's one of our detail gates, and it's called the small taming power because people who carry that activation often have the ability to notice the small details of animal behavior, and animals are drawn to people who notice them and understand them and kind of speak their little wordless language. So yeah. And then we have the great taming power, which is here out of the ego willpower center, and that is for taming people. This is a very powerful channel for taming people. Power for good or ill, right? So people who carry that power have a responsibility to use it for good rather than for manipulating people into doing what they want. Another lesson to self, yes. So, and in between those, we have gate 5, which is the gate of waiting and the channel of rhythm, doing things properly, everything in its proper place, waiting for the right time, having our rituals, all of that sort of thing. So we're going to be feeling a blip of that energy passing us by. Then we will have Mercury doing some exposure and some investigation maybe into the subject of intuition. Now, I carry 3 gates of intuition. This is intuition here coming out of the spleen. So this is a kind of body intelligence if we learn how to listen to it. And we're going to be going through 1, 2, and into the beginning of 3. I actually carry both 1 and 2 of this. So let's look at those real quick. 57 line 1 is, and when I say point line and point 1 and line 1, that's the same thing. So 57 line 1 is to intuitively grasp the inner meaning. Of course, that first line, it's foundational. It's talking about the nature of what intuition is. And I thought, well, maybe we could look at it a little bit briefly because we're getting short on time. Because we are moving into a time where intuition is going to be guiding us. That's going to be really important for us in the future. So This 57-1 does have a detriment on it, and that is when intuitive feelings are no substitute for clarity. Confusion and indecisiveness can be the consequences. So basically, this is about trying to intuitively grasp the meaning, but understanding that time is going to bring clarity to that intuition. So you have an intuition. It's not necessarily time to go acting on it right away. Think about it first. See how it pans out in the world so that you can avoid that indecisiveness and confusion that can happen there. We'll move into 57-2 throughout the day, cleansing. And that's the clarity of intuition and determination for values and ideas. So we have two ideas going on here, and one is internal cleansing. You have to have, in order to be able to have a proper compass needle working on your intuition, you have to be willing to do internal cleansing. You have to be willing to activate that 18th gate and look at yourself and say, what am I not getting wrong? Where am I getting puffed up? Where am I thinking that the world is doing me wrong and making me the victim and oh, woe is me, so that you can be humble enough in the moment to catch the things properly and not get all wrapped up in yourself and think that you're all that because you've had an intuition, and then determination to stick with that intuition. So clarity through cleansing and then determination. And this is happening, of course, in the second line in a natural way. The person isn't really thinking about it. A lot of times I have intuitions. I don't know. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just doing it. And then my partner is saying to me, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I'm just like, I don't know. I just feel this right now. Yeah. So, the third line of the intuition is really for tomorrow, but because it is edging into it, I thought, well, let's just give it to you. We'll come back to it again. The third line is acuteness, the acuteness of perfected intelligence. So at that stage, we're at that third line where it's experimenting with it and really refining that intuition. Our Venus line is starting off in 40 line 5, rigidity towards negative forces. And of course, what we have happening here is that 40th line, the bacon bringer, is saying, yeah, if you're asking too much for me and the things that I don't want, fuck you, I'm cutting you off. So it's a very abrupt kind of like separating kind of thing. You do you, I'm going off to be alone. You're not being nice enough for me to work for you and bring some bacon into this community. Or it's right. This is good, and I will bring the resources into this community, but specifically with an eye towards cutting out the ones that are asking too much of it, in their opinion. Then our Mars is at 28, line 2. We did get into this yesterday because it started yesterday, and that is alliances, the acceptance of questionable alliances, and it will be moving into line 3, which is adventurism. Adventurism combined with intuitive caution. So we're really getting to the nature of what it is to take a risk. Let's be cautious about the risk, but then let's go adventuring and see if we can meet that challenge. So that is the last of our energies, our people energies. We do have a slight shift on the global in that the Uranus energy, which has been at 20.2, goes into the detriment. This is one of those things I need to learn about. How can something that's just sitting there in the same line all of a sudden go into the detriment? When I find the answer, I will come back to you with that one. But for now, that the detriment on that 20th line 2 is dogmatism. Dogmatic and limited understanding which ignores everything that is seemingly irrelevant in the present moment. So I think we're definitely seeing this on the global scale as we have people who are more enlightened, more forward-thinking, clashing against those with this dogmatic and really zealotous old style of thinking, this sort of, oh, we got to return to the old ways. We got to make things great again. And it's just like, they're not going to be great again in that way. They got to be great in a new way. So, it's fine. We see this clash and the clashing is going on. That's good for us to release the mental oppression, right? But eventually, I'm sorry to say they are going to lose because they're just pushing against the tide. I'm sorry. I don't care how many big earth movers you have. You can't fix the tide. So we're at the end of our time. I will talk about the people of the cross of service tomorrow. So come back for that and we will do another forecast. Ciao.